With over 400 celebrity interviews and tons of pop culture nerdiness, Too Opinionated is a safe haven for your inner geek. Find us at meistercon.com or on YouTube under MeisterCon Pod. And please subscribe. It would really help us out. Thanks, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Too Opinionated. So excited today. I've got singer, songwriter, paranormal investigator, Katrina Weidman with me. So welcome, Katrina.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm pretty excited to talk to you. That's not a combination that I run into too often. But let's start on the paranormal side.
Okay.
So what got you into that, and kind of how did that get started?
It all started I have like such the typical ghost hunter origin story because I grew up in a haunted house. So
well, I read that about you, and I'm like,
yeah.
The first thing that crosses my mind is, why didn't you move?
I know. Well, we did, and then my parents bought another haunted house. So yeah, so they weren't great at
sensing a pattern.
Yeah, very much so. But no, neither of them were bad. They were like very benign, small things that would happen.
So you could tell something was going on.
Yeah,
but you didn't feel threatened.
No, not at all. It was just one of those things of like, you'd hear footsteps, or in the first house we lived in since I was like, born till I was about 5 or 6. And that one, a lot of apparitions. So my sister saw 2 different ones. And what's interesting is one of the ones that my sister saw was a tall man. And years later, the current owner, I've spoken to them, and when I spoke to them, it was like probably 2006. And I was just like, you live in our old house. And I was just curious if you've had anything. And she's like, no, I've had nothing. But then she was like, you know what, though? She's like, a client of mine stayed at the house, and they came to me the next day and they were like, you didn't tell me this place was haunted. And she's like, well, it's not. And he's like, well, I saw a man like standing in the doorway. So explain that to me. So it's just interesting that his experience happened probably maybe like 12 years after we had left. Didn't know of my sister's experience.
See, that would be enough for me to move.
Yeah. But it really, like, I don't know. I think when you have those experiences, it kind of sparks that thing in you of wanting to know what it was. Like
Did you ever try to find out who he was? Like, was that a former owner, or why was he there?
Yeah, I don't know yet. I went through the deeds before. I don't think I went all the way back to the beginning of that house. As far as we can tell, there was nothing that stood out, you know? But, and even in the house that we moved into afterwards, I did all the deed research, and I did like the whole research of the town. Like, that's how far I went. I'm like, oh, I gotta find out who lived here, what happened. And still nothing that really stands out. But the thing with the supernatural is there's no hard and fast rules, because paranormal, we don't, science can't explain it yet. So it's funny, we try to put these rules to it, but we don't actually know what the rules are, if there are, so it's like.
Yeah, that's true. We're just guessing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big guessing game.
Well, so how did you translate that, where you're kind of that interest, into being on so many different paranormal shows?
It was such a funny thing. It was very much right place, right time. So and this is kind of where it comes in with the music. I was a really, really poor student, like barely graduated high school. And it was funny. My dad actually I just had a birthday, and at my birthday party, he found one of my old report cards, and it was all like C pluses, a C, and my only A was an orchestra. And he thought he's just like, look what I found. And I ran around showing all my friends. I'm like, how funny is this? And he said to my mom, he's like, she's like proud of it. He's like, I'm like, it despite, you know, my poor.
That's right. You made it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And so my plan, well, I had a bunch of different interests, but it always came back to music and theater. Those were like my first two loves. And my family was very theatrical, very musical. So to me, I'm like, well, I suck at school anyway, so I'm just going to go and do music, and I'll do theater, and that'll be that. And you don't necessarily have to go to school to pursue those things. So I'm like, I'm not going to school. And I was a friend at the time was going to Penn State, and I dropped them off in August, and I will never ever forget it because they had one of those creepy conversion vans, you know, that used to have in the back, and yeah. And I remember opening up the sliding door, and I put both my feet on the pavement at the same time, and it was such an intense feeling that came over me. I've only ever felt this once before, but this was like 10 times that feeling. There was such an urgency to it of you need to be here and you need to be here now. And it made no sense. I never took my SATs, had terrible grades, had no interest in pursuing college. I took one class at community college, ended up getting like a D in it. So I was like, clearly college is not for me. Yeah. And, but it was such an intense feeling and I couldn't ignore it. And I remember I went home, and that Monday I'm like, I'm signing up for community college. And my parents are like, who are you? Like they basically thought I went away to like the number 2 party school for one weekend and was like, I love college. They were like, it's not all drinking. I'm like, no, I know. And like, and the community college was like, yeah, good luck, because even though it was a state school, it was still a pretty competitive state school. And I didn't have the grades. I didn't have any of that. But I did it, and I got in, and I did pretty well in college. And while I was there, it was kind of during the start of the explosion of all of these cable shows coming out about ghosts. And my aunt was like, you know, you should see if Penn State has a club. I bet you they have a club, and you should join, and you would love it, because I've always been into it. Every Scholastic book fair, I'd get every single book I could ever find on like ghosts, and you know, always had the Ouija board with me at a party. And so sure enough, they had a club, signed up for the club, and they had a training course to be an investigator. So you could go through this whole entire course to learn how to like interview properly, and you learn about the history of it and everything. And I signed up for that. And at the same time, they were getting a TV show. And I entered college studying music in my first degree and theater in my second degree. And so I was like, I have no fear of the camera. I'm like, sure, I'll check this out. And I ended up getting on that show, and then it snowballed. It was literally like, oh, and here's another show. Oh, and here's another show. And here's another one. And it was funny because like when we were kids, this wasn't a job. So it was never something I thought you could do for a living. I just kind of thought you would do it as for fun, as a hobby, and like it would be an interest. So, that's how it all started. It's so wild.
That's amazing. It's almost meant to be.
That's what I mean. Like the feeling I had was, it made like logistically, it made no sense for me to go to college. Like there was no plan for that. My parents they were so taken aback by it. Everyone I knew was like,
something doesn't fit.
Yeah.
So is the new show, is the most recent, that's Portals to Hell?
So yeah, Portals to Hell, we just wrapped that series. So we did 3 seasons on Discovery Plus and Travel Channel.
Yeah, it's a creepy show.
Oh yeah. I think probably the creepiest one we went to a murder farm, if you can believe that. And it was a family of serial killers. So it was 3 generations of serial killers. It was so crazy. And the craziest part is that they only found 3 bodies, and they know there's so many more, but it's 3,000 acres of farmland.
Oh my gosh.
That these bodies are buried on. And so the current owners have experiences. And so that's kind of how he came into contact with them, because the wife is very, very sensitive to the experiences. And there's a couple that have really, really scared her, so we went out to see if we can just, you kind of go to see if you can document anything, if you can help them through the experience somehow. But that was probably the creepiest one.
Were you able to help them?
I hope so. I think sometimes you never really know, because it's
That's
again,
right.
you're working in a field that doesn't have absolutes. And I think so much of the time we want solid answers, and we can't give them in this. We can give kind of like our best thoughts. We can,
right.
I think it's more about taking away maybe the mythology of.
Okay. That makes sense.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So this show, Jack Osborne is on as well. How did you two kind of get together?
Yeah. So Jack like cold emailed me and then cold called me, and was just like,
that's kind of amazing.
Yeah. It was really interesting, because like obviously I knew who the Osbournes were, because you can't be American and not know who the Osbournes are. And so I knew who he was. And what I didn't know was that he was really, really into ghosts. I knew he had a show before, but I didn't realize like how into it he was. Right. And he used to watch my first show. So he had known.
Okay.
And when he started doing portals, or when it like, he knew he was moving forward with it, he wanted a co-host. And my name came up in the conversation, and he's like, let me reach out to Katrina. And we ended up just really getting along and having kind of the same philosophy on what the paranormal is, what it isn't, what we wanted to do with the time we had with portals, and how we wanted to approach that. We were very much aligned.
3 seasons is actually really good for a paranormal show. That's really good.
That's what I think too. I think it's great. Unfortunately, it got canceled because Discovery is going through a merger with Warner Brothers.
Right. And it's a lot of shows run into that.
A lot of shows get canceled when there's a merger.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's a merger in any field, it's never good.
Yeah. Yeah.
As far as for the workers and stuff, because there's going to be layoffs.
Oh, huge layoffs. Yeah. There were huge layoffs.
So I have a really, really good group of high school buddies that we're still very close, still live in the area. And one of those ran the West Virginia Film Office for a time. And at some point, one of the paranormal shows that was on at the time calls and says, we're looking for a location to put a show. And he's like, well, I know one, because our other friend, they've got this, kind of family home that's been passed down since like the 1840s or something like that. And it's supposed to be haunted. Well, we spent our entire childhood at this house. Like, that's where everybody hung out, and we just spend the whole day there, sometimes the night. And it was a very creepy house. It was not haunted. Not at all. Not at all. I've been there. If it was, none of it happened to any of us. But we'd all heard the stories, had all these stories. So, so they're like, oh, this sounds perfect. We'll do it there. Well, they went and they talked to my friend and his family and stuff. But they needed somebody outside the family to verify that this stuff was happening with stuff. Yeah. So they, out of the blue, I get this call, and they're like, this is what we're doing. Can you verify this? And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, what do you want to know? So I told, verify that. Well, they're like, well, we want you to be in this show. I was like, okay, I'll do it. So my, I had my little minute and a half, confirming that all this activity that actually wasn't happening was happening. And
so you lied about it?
I totally lied.
Michael.
I know. But I knew all the stories, so I lied really well, I think.
Yeah.
So underneath me, like when I'm on camera, it lists my name, and then under my name it just says childhood friend.
Yeah.
That's how they identified me at that. Well, I got so much like play out of that childhood friend thing. So after that show aired, and they aired it like a billion times, as those type of shows tend to do. You know, they at that time I was working at DirecTV. I go into work and they were constantly playing the show. Just everyone was with that. And so I got kind of, you know, this nickname of childhood friend. I got known for being childhood friend. So I don't know. That always cracks me up. It's been over a decade now since we did that.
Wait, can you say which show it was?
Yeah, it was Haunted Collector.
Oh, okay. Yes.
On Sci-Fi Network. And it's bounced around since, but it was on for maybe 3 seasons.
I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Super nice group of people that came in. But so we got the whole experience, you know, kind of how they set up, what they're looking for, all that stuff. And I was like, well, this is all terrific. But I felt bad for him because I was like, I knew, like, there's nothing going on.
So there's nothing going on there.
But the funny part was, like, so they interviewed me, they did that thing, and then it shows them like checking out what I told them and stuff.
Oh, so
no! So they're checking it out on their readings and stuff, and they're
like a little puppet master with them.
They're like, "What do you got? What are you showing?" Nothing.
So wait, did your friend's family believe the house was haunted?
No.
Oh, they did. So like nobody thought the house was haunted?
No.
Oh my God.
But we all knew the stories. There's some great stories.
Yeah.
And there was some like creepy, you know, those creepy paintings and stuff, or photos and that follow you wherever you go. And it was a blast. But so that was my that was my experience with the paranormal show. But unfortunately, there was no truth to this particular episode. I feel okay saying that now because it's been like
so long. Yeah.
But I got a kick out of it. Back in my younger days, you know, I didn't have as many scruples back then.
Yeah. Well, you were a childhood friend.
So. A childhood friend. I did my job. That's what they wanted. I gave it. Yeah. No, I actually think you're really good at what you do. I've seen several of the shows that you've done. Portals to Hell, I thought was really well. It's fun.
Yeah.
You know, and you guys, you have good chemistry together. You know, it's really well done. And some of them are really creepy. Like some of them you watch and you're like,
yeah,
I don't want to think too hard about that.
Yeah, we definitely had some creepy experiences, and Jack and I got along real well. I think because we both have a really twisted sense of humor. So which you kind of have to have when you're doing that for a living, I think. But you know, it was always like, to me, they're always investigations first, TV second. So my goal is always to do a good job as an investigator and like I think that's good. Yeah. Try to help whoever, you know, is the location owner, whatever it is that they want. You know, that's kind of always my first question. What do you want out of this? And we'll try to make that happen. But it's also always a conversation of, you know, I can't give you any guarantees. I can't give you any absolute.
Well, there's no way. You don't know what's going to happen.
I have no idea. You know.
Have you ever been creeped out?
Yeah, many times. There was one place, I mean, many, many times, but the one that really shook me was I was working in England, and it's an old, you know, it was like an old twin house, that kind of neighborhood. And it's a haunting that goes back, as far as we know, to 1966. And, you know, it started very randomly, started kind of benign. And some of these hauntings that last this long, that escalate a lot, that's kind of how they start. They start randomly, they start benign, to the point where the family is like naming their ghost and they think it's cute, they think it's funny. And then it escalates.
Why do you think that is? Because you hear that a lot, that it starts out kind of almost like child prank type of things, but then it escalates at some point. Why do you think that is?
So it depends on who you talk to. I think the general consensus is, so to back up a little bit, a lot of the hard and fast rules or the theories that you hear in the paranormal, it's not like they come out of, it's not like people are just making things up. It's like, they come out of a lot of times cultural beliefs or religious texts.
Yeah.
And sometimes because we have had investigators since like, the 50s. Actually, it goes back even more because there was the Ghost Club in England in the 1800s. So there's always been people for the last 100 years kind of looking into this. But, as modern investigators, the way we think of it, like an Ed and Lorraine Warren or a Hans Holzer,
Right.
We do have cases that go back decades, and there seems to be certain patterns that exist. But we also have to take into account that there's, so for example, Ed and Lorraine Warren, and I use them as an example because everyone knows of The Conjuring now.
Sure.
Which is based off of, their investigations. But Ed and Lorraine were Catholic. So you also have to take into account that they're going to have that lens.
That's right.
On them when they're explaining what they experienced or what they think is happening. So to answer your question, if I'm talking to someone who's Catholic, they're going to say, it's escalating because it was never a benign entity to begin with. It was something very negative. They would probably use the word demon.
Sure.
And it was trying to mask itself as something, friendly and benign to gain your confidence and get entry into your home, because they kind of have to be invited in to be able to take a hold of your home. So that's the Catholic view, and some religions and belief systems kind of follow that using their own terminology. But, we don't really know. It's just a pattern that we do see, though, sometimes. And so when I was working over in England, the family had been gone by the time I was there in 2016. I always get the dates mixed up. They either left in 2008 or 2012, but they stayed the whole time. And when we were having interviews with people that have had experiences there, a lot of people said, when you stand in the coal hole, you'll get scratched. Everyone gets scratched in the coal hole. And the coal hole is like a giant pantry.
Don't stand in there.
Right. Don't stand in the coal hole. It's as simple as that. But I stood in the coal hole. And I was standing there, and I felt this intense burn on my lower abdomen. And I knew from interviewing so many people over the years that anytime they get a scratch, they always describe it as something like a really intense burn.
Yeah.
And I was just standing there, and I felt it, and I was like, there's no way, because that was the thing that hit my head, was this is a really intense burn, and I'm standing in the place where everybody gets scratched. So I was wearing 2 shirts. My hands were freshly filed. They were at my sides. I lifted up my 2 shirts, and sure enough, there were 2 fresh scratch marks on my abdomen. And one of them had broken the skin, so there were like drops of blood coming out of it.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Yeah, it was very scary because my shirt wasn't disturbed at all. There were no scratches on my shirt. There were no holes in my shirt, and it was one of those things of, in that moment, I couldn't comprehend how that happened. So my brain was trying really, really hard to make sense of it, and it couldn't. So that was probably the most scared I've ever been. Because then it comes rushing to me, all these people who are like, you'll get scratched. And I'm like, whatever.
Sure enough.
They were right, yeah.
Well, so if you get these, like a paranormal scratch, I don't know what else to call that, what do you do to heal that? I mean, is that just Neosporin, it heals right up? Or did it take a long time to heal?
No, it's just like a normal scratch. It healed the same way for me. And
because that would be what would run through my head. To be like, oh no. What's this going to turn into?
Yeah. But that was the most terrifying.
That's scary.
Yeah. It was very weird.
That's very scary. All right, so let's switch gears to something happier.
Okay.
With that, although I think this is so fascinating, and I love that, like watching you on camera, you go about it very practically, and you don't, you're not dismissive of anything, but you're also not like overly gung ho, if that makes sense. I think you handle it really well, which makes the shows really interesting. But let's talk about the singing, because besides this interest or this career that you've made, you've got a terrific singing voice.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really I like it's really good. It's
Thank
very
you.
soulful to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you've got like your I know you've done you were in a band for a while, but
Yeah.
now you're releasing solo music. So your first single is coming out tomorrow, is that right?
Yeah.
What's that feel like? Because that's kind of scary.
It is. Music has always been, as far as like endeavors I've done, I actually think it's scarier than the paranormal because I'm not, I'm not singing songs that somebody else wrote. I'm singing songs I wrote. And
Right.
to me, I think music has always felt the most vulnerable for that
Yeah,
reason.
you're putting yourself out there a little bit.
It's a diary. So it's, when people criticize the work I do in the supernatural, like I get it. I'm with them half the time. I'm like, I
Right.
agree with your criticisms 100%. And even, when I was acting, and when I was in school for theater, there's some sort of level of protection because you're playing a character.
Yeah.
It's still like you have to be really vulnerable to be a good actor, but there's still kind of that little bit of a wall, a little bit of protection there. And with music, I've always found it to be the scariest because I just think it's so soul bearing,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it's pretty I mean, that's to me, I think that would scare me more than being in a haunted house.
Yeah, yeah.
Because yeah, you're kind of you're especially when you wrote the music yourself,
Yeah.
you're really putting yourself out there. So the song is "Suffer Me," and I love it. My wife loved it as well.
Oh,
She
thank
works for
you.
Live Nation, so she's very into music, and yeah, she absolutely loved it. Just
Thank
terrific.
you.
But so tell me about "Suffer Me." What's the song about? What inspired you to write it?
It's funny. Another kismet thing happened. So my band broke up and we went our own ways. And I felt like ever since the band disbanded, I had such writer's block. I
Yeah.
felt like everything I was writing was, shit. And sorry, can I curse
Oh
on
yeah,
your
you can
on
curse.
your okay.
You can
Awesome.
curse.
I curse a lot.
Oh,
And
you've ruined
so
everything.
yeah. But I just felt like everything I wrote, I hated everything I was writing at the time.
Yeah.
And um, I just felt really stuck with it. Again, fate here. A friend of mine named Jamie, we had never met in person. We were Facebook friends. And I think she had friend requested me in like 2005, maybe something like that. It's like when college kids could only have Facebook.
Right.
And we were from the same area, kind of, and she was living like 30 or 45 minutes from where I grew up. She also had her own TV show, and she was really into the supernatural. So she friended me,
Oh,
and we talked a couple times just through Messenger of like, oh, we should hang out sometimes. It'd be great to meet
yeah.
you. I thought she was like the coolest chick. I'm like, I so want to be friends with her. And then we just never met in person.
Yeah.
But I always saw her postings and everything. And she posted something about her spouse being a music producer and having a mentorship program. And
Okay.
at the time, I was like, I feel so stuck. This kind of sounds like something that would be up my alley.
Yeah.
So I contacted Barb Morrison, who's Jamie's spouse, and I had a conversation with Barb, and I was just like, this is kind of where I'm at. And Barb explained their mentorship program. And so I started taking that, and it was like the entire program. I wrote like a song a day for 8 weeks. It was just like, it just, it was a complete, like the floodgates opened of things I think I was holding in for so long.
Yeah.
And so Suffer Me came kind of towards the end of it, and it was just really late night, early morning writing session, and something just kind of struck a chord with me about it. And I wrote it that night, and I played it for Barb the next day, and they texted me and they were like, can we please record this? They're like, it did something to me. I don't know what it did to me, but they're like, it did something.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that we got in the studio a couple months later and recorded it, and here we are.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's yeah. It's like you're just living your life, and fate just keeps intervening.
Yeah. Hoping. I always ask for it to intervene. So
it kind of sounds like a Hallmark movie. Maybe we should listen to that.
A very scary Hallmark movie.
I think Hallmark they could do that. They could branch out in that. A paranormal investigator.
I think they should.
You leave your small town to go to the big city. You get scared out of your mind and have to come back to the small town. Yes. And then you find that you can actually write music.
Yeah. So I find my
successful.
It's my saving grace from all the scary stuff. I like it. I love it. Somebody's going to write that now. And it's going to become better.
Yeah, that's okay. As long as somewhere in there, it just says, special thanks.
Yeah. To childhood friend. Yeah.
Childhood friend. Perfect. Yeah. There was a period of time, and I can't act. I'd be horrible at it. But there was a period of time where I thought, if I could just start getting into stuff as childhood friend, like I wouldn't have to have big roles or anything, just stuff like, at a bar or something. Hey, have you met my childhood friend?
I would love for that to happen now. I hope somebody is casting something and they're like,
that's all I'm asking. Just a little cameo. You do not know this little area here. People will go nuts. I mean, nobody else will care, but my little area, it'll go crazy.
But then you can do cons and everything, and you'll be at the cons as childhood friend.
Oh, and I totally would. Sitting at the table, childhood friend. Get your picture taken with childhood friend.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a childhood friend.
Yeah.
So is the plan, after Suffer Me comes out, is the plan to release more singles, or are you building up to like an EP or an album?
An EP, yeah. So then it'll be another single, and then the EP will come out. But the next single is from the EP. So it's a 3-song EP. And then the plan after that would be to do the album. So
that's scary.
It is scary, but it's also I don't know. Have you ever had something that is scary to you, but like you felt like you just had to do it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's like one of those things, because I've been doing this. I've been writing songs since I was 11.
Wow.
And
it's always been an outlet.
100%. And it's funny because everyone who knows me personally, not that they were surprised that I went into the paranormal, because I was always like the weird child. They're like, makes sense. But they were all really surprised I didn't go into music professionally, because they were like, that was you. That's what you did.
Well, yeah, that's what I said. You've got fantastic voice.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's exciting. Do you play instruments?
Yeah, I play piano. And I did play violin for 8 years, but violin.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it's funny. It was like I never had a connection to the violin.
Yeah.
The piano, I don't know. It's like I just have that connection to it. Like, good luck prying me away from one if there's one in the room. I'll find my way to it. But I have such a connection to the piano. So piano, and then I've been studying voice since I was a teenager. So
yeah, that's I love that, and makes it a little easier when you're writing.
Yeah,
if you're actually able to play something.
Yeah,
you can kind of test it out and see what works.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty great. Any plans at some point to get like back into a band?
I don't think so. I think, I loved being in a band because I love that. I just liked the vibe of it. It was fun, and it was, but I think solo work works better for me. I like working with Barb. I like getting in the studio, working with the engineer, and I think it's a better process for me. So I don't expect I would ever go back to a band, but I do like maybe a one-off with a band sometime with a
Yeah.
friend, like a friend that has a band. I definitely jump up there with
Well,
them
that'd be
singing
fun.
backing vocals or something, or maybe write a song with a friend that's in a band for sure. But
Yeah.
I think I prefer the solo stuff.
Is there a music video coming out with Suffer Me?
So yes, my friend Jay and Jay is a filmmaker, director, producer. He's also a musician, and we were talking about it. And he's just like, if you're ever into doing a music video, I would love to do one. I'm like, well, let me send you a couple songs and like tell me which one speaks to you, and maybe we can move forward on that. And he really, really loved Suffer Me. So he's like, I would love to do the music video for that. I was like, cool. So
okay.
yeah, I'm like, all right. So we're gonna move into that.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. That was what I was going to ask you. Do you any plans at some point to test, to try to do acting?
I would love to. So I've always kept up with my acting. So I've always taken workshops and classes, and so I've done workshops at like Walnut Street Theater, which is the oldest one in Philadelphia. It's actually the oldest theater in the United States. And
that's pretty neat.
Studied at, yeah, it's really, really cool. The Barrymores used to perform there.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I've studied at Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, Stella Adler in Los Angeles. So I've always kept up with it, but it was like one of those things. I feel like the supernatural career that I have, it took on a life of its own. It was just like snowballing. And it's funny enough, when the pandemic hit, and after I watched like every goddamn 80s sitcom I could ever watch, and I was like, I can't watch any more Perfect Strangers. Like I can't do it.
Yeah.
And it was just like, and it was one of those things that I'm sure a lot of people experienced in the pandemic, of you just have yourself to look at. And it was that thing that you hear about of people, like, it's like you wake up and you're like, wait a minute, how many years has it been? And how did I let this sit on the back burner for so long, when it's something you love and something you do? And it's very much one of those moments, and it really lit a burner under my butt.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, why not? You've already been on camera. You don't mind performing.
Yeah.
Seemed like acting would be a logical step.
Yeah.
There's that show Ghosts.
I love that show.
I do too.
Which one have you watched both versions?
I haven't watched the British version. I'd love to see it. Have you seen it?
Oh yeah, it's so good. So good.
Okay. Do you have a favorite?
So that's the thing. They're both so different, because
it's kind of like The Office, I think.
Yeah, it's like
the
British one's a little darker, a little drier, and the US one is a little like peppier and campier. But I love them both.
We need to get you on there.
I know, that would be so fun.
I know some of those actors. I'll
do you?
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Gotta get you on there. That'd be fun.
That would be fun. Oh my gosh, I would love it.
It's a fun show, because that's the type of show. It could be terrible. Like if it's not done right, it could be really bad.
Yeah.
But they do it so well.
They do. I know.
I like the scenes where, she can see ghosts. So when you're seeing it through her eyes, she sees them. But then when it switches to her husband's eyes, nothing's there. I like
totally clueless. Yeah.
I think that's pretty good.
It's funny, because that's a pattern we see a lot. It's usually in a male-female relationship, it's normally the females that recognize the activity first, and the husband is
it's because we're clueless.
Yeah. And it's so interesting to me. We see it all the time. And the husband's like, I thought she was crazy. And then like they have one experience and they're like, it's haunted. So
well, yeah, because you almost have to hit us over the head to get us to, pay it. You hear stuff in the house or whatever, so you just ignore it.
Yeah. Chair levitating next to you. My wife's crazy.
House is settling.
It's the wind. Yeah.
Well, Katrina, thank you so much. This has been terrific. I think you're so fun to watch on camera, and you've got this amazing voice. I think you're so talented.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
you're so welcome.
Thank you for having me on. And I'm so sorry it was late again. So anytime you want to do this again, I'm at
we have to do this again. If for whatever reason, if you have another, when your next song comes out or the EP comes out, if you get another show, if I get you on Ghosts, whatever it is.
Yeah. Okay.
We got to talk some more. It'll be fun. So the music, Suffer Me's the song, comes out tomorrow. So where can we find Suffer Me? Where can we find you on social media? Sure.
So Suffer Me is on all the big music platforms. So you have your choice: Amazon Music, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. It's all there. And me, I am on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. They're all at Katrina Weidman. And I have if you're into the ghost stuff that I do, I currently have a YouTube series that I do called Travel the Dead. And that's very much the private investigations that we're asked to do as investigators. So it's kind of like a peek behind the curtain of what we do.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Very intimate.
I love the behind the curtain stuff.
Yeah. It's me and my best friend, Heather Taddy. She was on Paranormal State with me.
Oh, very nice. Okay. Yeah, I know who that is. Yeah, very good. Very good. Well, if you need a childhood friend to show up and verify anything.
Okay. Well, we don't fake anything though. So you have to, we'll have to get you for something true.
I don't know that they did either, but.
Yeah. Oh, but it was on, you're like, but I totally.
It was
like,
me.
I totally did, yeah.
I mean, admittedly, it wasn't just me.
Yeah. Oh man.
I wanted to tell the truth. They made me.
Well, for something that's truthful, we'll have you on.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, there you go.
Fair. There would be nothing more hilarious than seeing something actually happen to me.
Oh yeah. Are you a non-believer?
No. No, I believe. I would just freak out.
Run like a Michael-sized hole in that wall kind of thing. Yeah.
You'd see it. I'd be on the episode 1 second, and then you just see me from behind as I'm running.
That's fair. Yeah.
Everybody else would be like, "What just happened? What did he see?" You'll have to catch me to find that.
Yeah.
Now, Katrina, thank you so much, and let's plan to do this again. This has been great.
Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Hang on 1 second.
Okay.
All right, so that's the talented Katrina Weidman. The song is Suffer Me, and it comes out tomorrow. Do me a favor, do yourself a favor, and check that out. Give her your support. So talented, just an unbelievable. Wait till you hear this song. Unbelievable. Just absolutely amazing. You probably have, if you have any interest in the paranormal, you have probably seen her on Paranormal State, Real Fear, Paranormal Lockdown, or the latest one, Portals to Hell with Jack Osborne. She's terrific. Just really, really talented. Thank you guys so much for tuning in again this week. Really appreciate that. If you'd like to support us, super easy. If you're listening, wherever you listen to your podcast at, just subscribe. If you prefer to watch, for us, it's YouTube, MeisterCon Pod. If you could subscribe there, that would really help us out. You can find all 555 episodes, audio and video, on our website, meistercon.com. So make sure you check us out there as well. Thank you guys so much. Until next time. Bye, everybody.